Hey, Convergence family. My name is Brendon Wheeler, and this right here is Wheeler. I am ashamed to say that I'm using him as clickbait. So I'm going to hand him off to my wife, Danielle. So this actually has nothing to do with cute babies or parenting. I just, like I said, thought I'd use him as clickbait. Actually, what I wanted to talk about was intimacy. God's really been sharing a lot of things with me about intimacy and really how grace and vulnerability are required in intimacy for relationships to go deeper, either relationships with friends or your spouse or God. And one of the biggest enemies that I've found to intimacy is judgment and shame. And that's really where grace comes in and covers these so they're no longer taking away from our intimacy and relationships. So what really captured me first in this journey learning about intimacy is that grace flows both ways in a relationship. So not only am I required to have grace for, say, my wife in our relationship, that's something that any premarital counselor will tell you before you get married, is to have grace for the other person and what they're going through. But really, I've learned one of the biggest things that struck me is God teaching me that I need to have grace for myself. And that's actually really difficult. It's really difficult for me to have grace for myself because I know I should have known better. I shouldn't have done this or that because I knew better and all these things. I really just have less grace for myself. This whole process catapulted me on a journey of learning how, if I have no unconditional grace for myself, how can I really have unconditional grace for my wife or anybody else for that matter? If Yahweh has unconditional grace for me, who am I to add conditions to that grace? Who am I to add conditions to this measuring stick of, well, I've reached grace now or I haven't, if he's given me complete unconditional grace? Even on the cross, when Jesus said, "It is finished," that strikes me as there is full unconditional grace. There's no longer conditions. He has fulfilled all conditions. There's now unconditional grace available. So what does that say about my belief on the cross? Have I stripped it of its power in my life and those around me if I don't operate in unconditional grace? Have I finally found the thing that grace can't or hasn't already covered? Which is, again, a crazy statement in and of itself, because of course not. Grace covers everything. And other things that God was asking me as I was walking through this process was, is it really wisdom to hold myself to a higher standard than God does? And does that gain his favor if I hold myself to this higher standard? If grace frees me from performance, what now is my standard in walking through life? Am I being more mature and pretending that I'm doing God a favor by being hard on myself since I know that he hates sin? That, to me, that statement is very telling of my beliefs. It reminds me of the talents parable, where the wicked and lazy servant hid his talents because he knew that his master was a hard taskmaster. He had a belief that was a lie about his master, God's character, that led him to bury his talent. I do the same thing in deeming myself unworthy of grace and unworthy of perfection because I associate more with sin than his grace. I see his hatred and disapproval of sin more than I see his grace and approval of me. Like that servant, I believe a lie about God's character by not believing the whole truth about his character, that his grace covers all sin for all time. Through this process a couple years ago, I heard God ask me a question, or rather make a statement when I was struggling through this. And he said, if I needed you to be perfect, I would have made you so. This really forced me to take a good look at what my definition of perfect is. Is this something I view in reference to my actions or behavior, where I'm perfect based on my actions or behavior? This revelation, again, kind of tongue-in-cheek almost, of if I needed you to be perfect, I would have made you so. It really spoke to me on two levels. One was, I don't believe God would have given us free will if our actions were required to be perfect for us to remain in perfection. Now, on the flip side, because otherwise I'm not perfect by any means at any part of the day. But why I say this statement's almost tongue-in-cheek is God saying, if I needed you to be perfect, I would have made you so. Because God is perfect and he made us in his image, I am perfect. I am in perfection. That is simply a reality because of what he's done. So maybe perfection is less about actions and more about where we're positioned. Maybe where we are positioned is more important than our behaviors. Our understanding of who we are and our agreement in that truth is the essence out of which our behaviors are birthed. If our essence is perfect because Jesus reversed the curse, then our behaviors will fall in line with our beliefs. So kind of wrapping this up, what I really love is a statement Graham Cook made in one of his teachings about how Jesus walked up to him one day and said very sternly, "Give me back my stuff." This has always stuck with me. Because Jesus died for it. He paid for it. He paid for shame. He paid for death. He paid for sin. He paid for all of it. And if I hold on to it, I am basically stealing back what Jesus has purchased. And I'm stealing from Jesus. And I don't have a right to my shame anymore. I have no right to take on shame. If I do something that I see as wrong and I feel shame for that, I have no right to that shame. That's not my shame anymore. Jesus bought that. So in a way, this is a picture that I feel like God gave me is in walking, if we walk in this and we take on this shame, we're really squatting on lands that have belonged to our ancestors, but it no longer belongs to us. We have to move on to the lands that grace bought for us and live off those lands and live off the fruit of that land. Because Jesus is not giving us back our shame. So one of the questions that I ask myself almost daily now is, what if I live today like it truly is finished? Sorry, it's my son sneezing. So what if I live today like it truly is finished? What if I actually walked out today like grace truly does cover all? That for me is when grace, the empowering presence of God, really kicks it in to another gear. So I just want to bless you guys in walking out this week, and I bless you guys with unconditional grace that you would know more of him.